Hello and welcome to the Hash. I am Zach Seward. I am joined by the whole gang. We got Will Foxley, we got Jen Sanasie, we got Ben Powers, we got Naomi Brockwell. We got a lot to get to today, so let's do this thing. Will, take us to DC. What is the latest on the infrastructure bill as it relates to the crypto industry?
Not a lot there to update. It's just bad news bears all around. So they're choosing not to go forward with amendments to the cryptocurrency provision in this infrastructure bill at all. Why are they doing that? Because they're not allowing any amendments at this time. They voted, I believe, yesterday to not go forward with any amendments. Doing that because it's very difficult to get a bill through the House and into the Biden administration's hands to be signed, to go into law, if you start opening up this can of worms and getting amendments into all of the provisions in this infrastructure bill. There was a photo, I think, from a few weeks ago of the infrastructure bill, and it's just like a stack of papers, probably like 3,000 pages, something crazy like that. And they don't want to open that up and start allowing everyone to have like their say on what amendments should be made with what, even though there is a clear and bipartisan effort to change this cryptocurrency provision to strike some of the language in it and to make it more succinct than it currently is. As it stands right now, it could be interpreted to hurt everyone from miners to validators to exchanges, even node operators in the space, which is not great for the cryptocurrency industry writ large. The Treasury, the IRS, and some other government bodies are saying that's not how this rule will be interpreted. But of course, we know just from history that things can be interpreted once again in the future at the whim of anyone's pleasure. So pretty frustrating news from Capitol Hill. I'm oddly not seeing kind of like the rigor and anger that happened when this was in front of the Senate. So I'm wondering why that is the case. I'm going to throw it to Zach and get your thoughts on why that is. Like, why are people not as upset about this going through the way it is right now in the House that it was when it happened with the Senate?
Yeah, I think maybe people kind of spent their anger capital on that one and maybe weren't too optimistic that the House was going to revisit this. I think there was a little bit of hope that something could change, but I think maybe we're at what stage of grief would this be? Acceptance. So that would be my gut on that. But yeah, I mean, again, this has just been an education in how bills become law in DC. And I think it's been really eye-opening for a lot of people in the crypto industry to see that this is the process that could have serious ramifications for the industry going forward. So again, I think there's a little hope in this, hey, we're not going to enforce this according to the Treasury Department. But again, that does not feel especially sturdy to folks. So I don't know. But yeah, I guess this seems to be closing the chapter on whether or not this will be changed in statute. I'll kick it back to you, Will, in case you have more.
Yeah, just a few more thoughts. Toss it down to Naomi. It's been interesting to see the bipartisan effort across the board to have this change, whether that's in the Senate, in the House, or even just among party lines outside of those two bodies. A lot of people want this language change, and I think it's been at least like comforting to me to know that this cryptocurrency issue has not become divided among political lines at the moment, and hopefully it doesn't ever go along that direction. Cryptocurrency is like a tech innovation. It's kind of follows in line with a lot of other American innovations, and I think that politicians across the space are recognizing that this issue seems just to be a problem with how the governance structure is set up within Congress right now, which leads us to the question, when DAO? When are we going to turn this into a DAO? But Naomi, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think it's a little more malicious than we're actually giving it credit for. If we actually look at the facts of this, the fact that Janet Yellen went out of her way to petition people to vote against the amendment that Wyden, Lummis, Toomey put together, there's something going on there. Like someone specifically going out of their way. I mean, we had the creators of the original crypto language turn around and say, okay, yeah, we support the Wyden, Lummis, Toomey amendment. And then suddenly, Janet Yellen starts petitioning them. They come up with their own amendment, which is absolutely terrible and still expands the definition of broker. And then, suddenly all amendments are cut out, and then suddenly it's cut out in the House. Like there's no way to change this. It's pretty malicious. And Jerry Brito of Coin Center has a pretty good rundown on Twitter where he says, it's a little strange to assure folks, like for the Treasury to assure folks that you will not target brokers because by definition, only brokers can be subjected to reporting obligations. Of course, the Treasury will never target non non-brokers. Whoever's targeted will be have to be interpreted to be a broker. But the bill's whole purpose is to expand the definition of broker. That's the issue. So no, the Treasury isn't going to go after non-brokers. They're expanding the definition of broker so that it could be interpreted to cover non-middlemen who would not qualify as brokers today. For example, the article says that the Treasury official said they did not intend to target certain decentralized exchanges, but how can you even target a decentralized exchanges? So it begs the question, what do they even define as a decentralized exchange? And Jerry Brutto suggests that, that could possibly refer to coders, people who are developing this software, and that's actually who they're going after. So it's no comfort to me at all that the Treasury has come out with their statement, especially when they've tried so hard to make sure that this language, as it stands, stays exactly how it is in the crypto provision of this infrastructure bill. So and there's a lot of other stuff that's not just broker stuff. So the bill also creates an obligation for all crypto transactions over $10,000 to be reported to the IRS, along with personal information of the counterparty. I don't even know how that's possible for so many crypto transactions. So I think that this is big news, and anyone who's saying that the crypto space is overreacting to this, I think is missing the point, because this is really going to have hugely detrimental effects. But let's move on. Something a little more fun. Zach, let's tell us what's going on with Budweiser.
A bit frothy, even, huh?
Oh my
pun?
gosh.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I'll be here all week.
Now we know why Zack chose the story.
That's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. All right. Anyway, remember earlier this week when Visa bought a CryptoPunk for a bunch of money? All right. Well, this whole institutional NFT thing seems to be really gathering pace. Budweiser USA made waves last night on Twitter when it changed its avatar to a goofy little rocket ship after purchasing that NFT for 8 ETH, according to blockchain data. They also bought the beer.Eth domain name as they get ready to launch into the NFT universe, according to an Anheuser-Busch InBev spokesperson. So that is right there, the OpenSea profile of the beer.Eth domain. You'll notice that there's a few penises, there's a crypto dick butt. That happens when that happens when Ethereum addresses are published to the internet. And hey, it's a permissionless system. You can send that address anything that you want. So I was looking at this
family show, Zach.
Sorry. I just say it like it is. It's the name of the project, okay? Anyway, but so this happened last night. I was perusing that address. I thought it was pretty funny. There's the ENS domains. There's that NFT right there. There's a couple other ones. I think most of them were gifted to that address. But it's been interesting to see the next wave in this fast-moving institutional NFT moment. I'm going to toss this to Will. What's your take on Budweiser hopping in here?
No, I got a question right back for you. Is
All right,
Budweiser really an institution? Like Visa seems to be.
Yeah, dude, it's like a Fortune, it's like a Fortune 100.
Yeah.
It's a huge company. It's a massive company. Yeah. They have an NFT on their balance sheet right now.
Don't throw shade at
They control something like 80% of the
just wondering, it's like an
beer
institution.
production.
What is an institution?
It's an institution. It's a giant company. Yeah.
The king of beer since
Controls
1876.
slamming
Well,
me right now.
obviously.
I'm just wondering, what is an institution? We need to decide what that
beer.
means. Just because it's a big company.
Well, let's not even get into what is a computer.
Like
we
a
can go. How
cornerstone
deep do you want to
of
go with this?
Will, are you even drinking age?
Exactly.
What is a broker?
I'm gluten free. This doesn't apply to me at all. I can't even drink beer.
free. It's true.
This is exactly where this
Will with his
conversation was
shade,
meant to
That's
go.
all I
jump
thought.
in here.
Just wondering.
So much shade. All right. So it's really interesting that you have all these companies creating NFTs, because I think NFTs are going to become so normalized in the future that we're going to look back and be like, why did I buy a Budweiser one, right? Like, if you think about how many people are rushing out to buy Budweiser merchandise from their store, they're not paying like tens of thousands of dollars to go out and get that sticker or that T-shirt or whatever. Yet they are going out to get these digital, merchandise that these companies are now coming out with. I honestly think that we're going to turn around and be like, whoa, we paid like huge amounts of money to get these things. Like, I mean, maybe it'll be like these are the early ones, so they become collector's items or whatever, and so they have more value, and maybe there's a market for that. But I just see that, we're getting so excited every time one of these companies comes out with one of these things. And I think in the future, NFTs, I mean, there's a place for scarce digital assets and unique digital assets and all of this. And we're living in the digital world, so obviously more of this stuff's going to move into the digital form. And it's just going to become so normalized that these things are just going to be everywhere. And like an NFT isn't going to be so special, like we're going to be talking about it in every episode. I don't know. Like, Ben, what are your thoughts on all of that and how special these things are that keep cropping up and all these new companies that keep getting involved?
I mean, they're as special as what people want to pay for them, right? That's sort of what the market's setting all these weird parameters. And so, I think like we've talked about, we talked about Beeple, right? That's like $69 million. Like most NFTs are not selling for that. And I think, we're going to see them be a lot more accessible at a lot lower price point. Like Budweiser buying an NFT is, they can pay whatever they want, AD's like $25,000, right? But, what people are going to pay for like, their own produced NFTs, if that's the way they go, Naomi, you kind of like alluded to that, then I think it's going to be along the lines of like what a t-shirt would cost, right? People aren't going to be, paying gas fees, spending their hard-earned crypto on exorbitant things just for sort of like the social aspect of it, which is really, I guess, the only reason you would buy Budweiser merch for the most part. For me, what's more interesting is the ENS name. Like, I think that's really interesting because for the most part, that shows like a commercial sensibility to move into like Web 3.0 in an interesting way. And, the ENS domain names are meant to be, machine readable versions of wallet addresses, right? Like in the same way that when I type in, google.com or something, that's like an IP address, but a DNS resolves that and sends me to the proper thing. So I'm not having to read a string of like alphanumeric characters. And I'm going to be really curious to see what other corporations start to purchase those, because that is sort of the fundamental layer of creating a more immutable web. And I think that is the really interesting thing here, as opposed to the NFTs.
Get to squatting, folks. Buy up those .eth domains. Get out there. Let's see what happens. Okay.
And then resell them to corporations.
There you go. Resell them to corporations. Rinse, repeat. We saw institutional Bitcoin, Mass Mutual, Tesla put some Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Now we're seeing Visa and Budweiser do the same for NFTs, to your institution question a bit earlier on, Will. All right, we're going to take a break. That's it for the first part. We're going to do a little break here. Hey, remember that OnlyFans story that everyone was talking about when they're like, no, we're bumping sex related content off the network? Yeah, they reversed course on that, and they're going to go back to what they were known for. That was quick. Stick with us. Hopefully nothing changes between now
Still
and
pancakes at IHOP.
It's the hash. Let's go eat some pancakes.
CoinDesk indexes, the market standard for crypto assets since 2014. Our trusted data powers billions in publicly traded funds. CoinDesk indexes are the standard used by institutions, and they're the key for investors looking to understand and access crypto markets.
CoinDesk Bitcoin Price Index, XBX, has been instrumental to Grayscale, enabling investors around the world to access Bitcoin through a regulated, familiar product.
CoinDesk indexes enabled the early adopters to build crypto investment vehicles, and they're already trusted by a new generation of global investors.
Hello and welcome back to The Hash, where we bring you the latest and greatest in crypto news. So, Vast Bank, a small bank in Oklahoma, has been helping their customers purchase crypto through their bank accounts since February, and now they're adding a crypto purchasing feature to their mobile banking app. So, I thought this was pretty cool. They're a really small bank compared to the other banks that we usually talk about on this show. But we talk a lot about mainstream adoption and user experience, and the customers that they're piloting this with are able to buy crypto right from the same interface that they can view their checking and savings account. So, Naomi, I'm going to pass this down to you. What did you think of this new development?
Yeah, I think it's awesome that they're kind of acting on the guidance that Brian Brooks put forward before he left office. So when he was acting comptroller of the currency, he wrote guidance that said that banks were able to custody customers' cryptocurrency. And so that's exactly what this small Tulsa bank is doing. And they're using Coinbase as the exchange, and then they're custodying these assets. I think it's kind of cool to see all of that going on and to see this become more pervasive. You know, the more people that use crypto, I mean, you don't have to use it through a bank. I think that's a great, you know, on-ramp for a lot of people. But you don't have to use this through a bank. But if more people are using it, the more valuable it becomes for everyone, even if you're on the fringes and not using the financial system at all. So I think it's great that everyone is getting involved. And we have, you know, all these little boutique banks kind of exploring this. We've also seen major banks getting involved. We saw BNY Mellon at the start of the year was like the first major bank to start to look into crypto and custodying it. But I think that we're just going to see more and more of this, and it's exciting to see. But Ben, I'll throw to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing more and more desire for this. The interesting point to me is that, you know, in our head, we call this a tiny Oklahoma bank. And I think it's interesting a tiny Oklahoma bank is offering access to crypto for its users. I think it shows that, and quite often we talk about these banks being interested in Naomi, right? We talk about the desire from customers, you know, kind of driving that aspect. And if you have like smaller banks and, you know, non-coastal cities and states like that are starting to dive into this, I think that's really interesting because they too, I would imagine, are responding to what their customers might like. And, you know, even so, and in this story, we mentioned that I think it was maybe 65% of, you know, people they polled or were talking to were saying like, yes, we do want, you know, access to crypto, but we would like to do it through our bank and really comfortable interface in a way that they felt safe with. And so, you know, the fact that crypto acquisition is spreading, you know, out into more rural areas or maybe places we wouldn't typically expect, I think that's the interesting development here. But Zack, what are your thoughts?
This is the boring future of Bitcoin, and I'm all for it. It's just going to be super easy. It's just going to be integrated into everyone else's financial lives. And I think that's clearly where things are headed, right? I mean, that's the story of this last run, the institutional embrace of Bitcoin as an asset class, just like anything else. And so for this to live in your hometown bank's online banking app feels like a glimpse at the future. And it's going to be really interesting should that future become widespread and widely adopted. So, you know, we're in this mainstreaming moment. Bitcoin is not going to look like what it looked like previously. And that raises a lot of interesting sort of philosophical questions about sort of the intent of this technology. But this to me feels like, okay, yeah, the writing was on the wall with this. We already saw NYDIG announce a partnership with a network of banks. Okay, yeah, this is what it's going to look like now. So those are my thoughts on this one.
So they're offering Bitcoin and 7 other cryptocurrencies in this mobile feature. And I have a question for you guys. Do you think that we're slowly going to see exchanges fade away? I know this is a partnership with Coinbase, but do you think that banks are just going to offer this and slowly but surely this is what's going to happen and exchanges are going to fall by the wayside? Or is there still going to be, I guess, a market and a demand for both? Will?
Me, I think Zack should take that question. I want to hear his thoughts on it.
Ooh, me?
I definitely have an opinion, but I want to hear Zack's thoughts.
I mean, I think they'll probably be both, right? I mean, I think they'll probably be both. There's room for both. There's room for both and then some. But, you know, with the whole decentralized exchange space. So I don't know. I don't think I have a particularly nuanced take on that. But Naomi, curious for yours.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're going to have institutions that specialize in certain areas. So sure, you can have access crypto on Robinhood, but it's not going to be to everyone's tailored preference. That's why you have specific places where you can have more liquidity and more coin pairings. I mean, is JPMorgan going to be offering like the next, you know, 5th iteration of the Doge spinoff? Probably not, but you probably get that on an exchange that specializes.
You never
in
know
stuff.
These days.
You're right. You never know. They're going to be buying up those Budweiser NFTs with Visa and everyone's just going crazy. Yeah, no, I think that definitely, I mean, the fact that we have different banks and we have choices of banks themselves, you know, shows that customers have different preferences and will choose different banks for their needs depending on, you know, all of the different factors that the banks offer. And so it doesn't seem out of the ordinary that we would also have things like slightly iterating away from that to where we get to the other end of the spectrum with exchanges. And I definitely don't see an end to them, but I'm hoping for an end to them. And I think that we will force that the more that regulations come and crack down on these centralized institutions, and it will just push us towards decentralized exchanges. And that truly, I think, is the future. And on that note, with the idea of censorship and middlemen and all of that, let's move to the OnlyFans story. So it was just yesterday, right? It was just yesterday when we reported
it was just
the day before or sometime like this week. OnlyFans, they said that they were cutting out porn from their website, sexually explicit content, and there was tremendous backlash. Everyone was saying that they were turning their backs on all of the people who built up the OnlyFans platform, and we were looking at what role banks and payment processors had in all of this decision-making. Now they've announced that it will no longer ban sexually explicit content. They have rolled that back in probably response to all of the backlash that they've faced. And they've also talked, they've gone into detail about their banking relationships and how difficult it is for them, how accounts just keep getting shut down. And none of this is new, right? So in last year, 2020, we started to hear reports about OnlyFans starting to kick off content creators from their platform, and people were wondering whether the banks had a role in that as well. So this has been going for a while. Now, they've said it came to a head, and we can mind the pun, and they can no longer, support this content at all because all their banking relationships are going to go down the tube. And now they've turned around and said, no, actually, we're going to keep fighting. Like, it seems like it's an ongoing battle for them, and it's a difficult battle for them to fight. So I'm wondering how this is all going to end up. But Ben, I'm going to throw to you for this to dive into some of the details of what they announced.
Yeah, I think this is interesting on a few different levels. I think it's really interesting to see a platform respond this quickly to public criticism. I think it also speaks to the fact that, since Fosta Sesta, sex workers have been really vocal and organized, and, it's not sort of shrouded in this taboo, oh no, we can't talk about this secrecy, and has really open lines of communication, particularly in the media. And I think that's important to recognize people, as they are, and not just kind of as, the past might think of them or something along those lines. At the same level, I think it's really interesting that BNY Mellon is involved in this. And that's sort of, OnlyFans came out and was naming names like JPMorgan Chase, BNY Mellon, in terms of rejecting all the transactions associated with their site in a lot of different ways. And I thought that was really interesting, not least of which because we were just talking about BNY Mellon and being early in on crypto custodying, right? And I think it does point at the sort of inherent, when a lot of banks and even, banks are getting on board with crypto and starting to offer it as an offering, there's not a commitment to decentralization, right? Like the ethos and Zack made of the philosophies around Bitcoin and what technology is used for that you were talking about. I think this really shows that, people are here to make money and they're not really interested in the underlying aspects and sort of the commitment to peer-to-peer networks or decentralization. So that was my big takeaway here. It's on the one hand, BNY Mellon is yeah, we're going to custody crypto, sweet. And then on the other hand, they're but we're definitely going to reject all these transactions from OnlyFans. So that was my initial takeaway here. But again, applaud OnlyFans for listening to the public and, again, keep serving pancakes at IHOP as we talked about yesterday.
I wonder.
Go ahead, Jen.
Go for it. Okay. I was quickly just going to say, I wonder what was going on behind the scenes, because it took this public backlash for them to make a very quick decision. And they say they have a new financial situation, although we don't know what that is yet. And so I just wonder what the discussions were leading up to this point. They were going to change their business model completely and offer cooking content and content that people don't go to OnlyFans for. So it's just very curious that they've made all these very strange business decisions. And now, because of the very obvious public backlash, oh, we actually have a solution. So I'm curious to see what that solution is.
Yeah, and I would also add that, because I had the same thoughts, Jen, and I wonder whether some of this is publicity to get it out to the public, that a lot of it's not their doing, because they have been going through this for many, many months, almost a year of people being, having to get kicked off the platform, increasing backlash against them. I wonder whether this is their way of making a big splash and saying, hey, it's the banks, we have to ban it, but our hands are tied. And then they can turn around and say, okay, we're not banning it, but just so you know, this is the situation, just so people know where to focus their ire. But I would mention back on your comment, Ben, about BNY Mellon getting involved with crypto. We talked about on the show how the next step for them is obviously crypto. It's uncensorable money. You don't need to appease middlemen and payment processors in order to allow your consumers to accept cryptocurrency. And so that seems like the next step. But traditionally, when companies have started to add crypto options, then the banks have a reason to just deplatform those companies because they're involved with crypto, right? But we're in a very different situation now. I think that OnlyFans could very easily add crypto options, increasing crypto options on their platform, make it an integral part. And banks like BNY Mellon can't really, push back against that because, as you said, they're involved with crypto themselves. Now that banks are all getting involved with them themselves, they don't really have, 2 feet to stand on if they start pushing back against organizations that incorporate cryptocurrency into their business model, which is kind of.
Are you telling me banks can't have it both ways? What?
I was going to say, do you think that'll stop them?
Well, true that, you can't launder money, but we definitely can. We'll have to see what happens there. But it just does
Don't
seem
bring George
like,
Bacon to this.
It's going to be a much harder case for them to make. But Zack, I'll throw back to you.
So much shade.
What if this is the catalyst for social tokens? What if this drives people to new solutions? I don't think it necessarily will, but hey, it might. All right, let's change gears. We got to wrap it here. Ben, I think the story is yours. What's up?
It is, yeah. So the whistleblower Chelsea Manning is joining as a security contractor at the privacy startup NIM to audit their mixnets. Now, this was interesting for a few different reasons. One, I was thinking about when I was writing the story this morning, how much I've come to really enjoy the word audit in the context of technology generally. Like, it's a very boring thing, but it is so necessary and fundamental to everything that goes in. And we talk about it often on the show in relation to hacks and everything else. So NIM's interesting. They're working on a mixnet, which is essentially a mixed network. And you can think about it in a couple different ways. But when you're looking at the internet, you can do metadata level surveillance, which is sort of like in relation to, mobile technology or something, like when the NSA is looking at who's calling who, how long they're talking on the phone, and who else those people are talking to, even if they can't read the content of those calls. A mixnet works in a different way where you can't see that. It's kind of like you take the data packages that are moving around the internet, like a game of Yahtzee, you shake it up and you release it at different points and, in a different sequence such that people can't really tell exactly what data was going where and when it was input and output. So they've been working on this privacy tech for a while, which is specifically oriented to protect against state-level actor surveillance. So Chelsea Manning is joining, going to be auditing this code, and just a really kind of interesting turn of events for this whistleblower who was, in prison not even that long ago for leaking data around the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. But Naomi, I want to get your initial thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I thought it was super interesting. I haven't really heard much about Mixnet or, other kind of mixers. We all know Tor, and Chelsea actually made a statement mentioning Tor, saying, I frequently called for research into alternative methods to Tor that avoid exposing the data within the network to such analysis. And it is really cool that now we are getting better technology around this that can help protect people, specifically help protect whistleblowers or reporters, people who are, speaking truth to power or pushing back against the status quo or people in powerful positions. So I'm a big fan of this, very interested to see what NIM comes up with and how do the security audits actually turn out there. But definitely this is the direction we need to be moving in society as companies and governments are just siphoning up all of our data. They're just collecting everything out there. And so it's incumbent on individuals to start protecting themselves. And, we have technologists to thank who are helping us protect ourselves. They're creating great tools that help obfuscate our data so that it can't all be collected. So yeah, just keeping an eye on all these cool tools out there that we can be using today is a great idea for all of us as we just increasingly, move forward in this digital age. But Jen, I'll throw it to you for your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts when I read the article are a little bit left field, but we've spoken so much on the show about, regulators stepping in when it comes to big security breaches like the Colonial Pipeline, let's say. And I was just starting to think around these third-party audits. I can see something like this becoming commonplace. Like, why don't we make it a rule that third-party audits by people who really understand what's going on under the hood need to happen before your product launches, like in this case. And so I think this is a good step in the right direction, and I hope that we see more of it.
Make it a rule? Who would make it a rule?
I'm all for rules.
No rules.
I think it should be a rule. I think it should. I really think it should, because companies have proven that they're not doing it themselves.
Wait, they are
Jen,
doing it.
Governments have proven that they don't know what they're talking about, and how would they even know what standard to ask for in terms of tests? They have no idea. They can't tell their left foot from their right foot, and you're expecting they'll be able to come in and say, yes, that is a valid audit. Like, they have no idea. So no, it should not be up to the government.
Auditors should. Okay, maybe it shouldn't be up to the government, but there needs to be something that happens.
And that's what the free market's coming in and providing these third-party audits.
What is Chelsea Manning's history in the audit space?
Good question.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
So Chelsea actually is like an engineer as well, and a privacy and security engineer. You know, I don't have firsthand knowledge of this, but I know that Chelsea Manning has been talking to a lot of people in this space, and that was sort of the emphasis too of this article. You know, like there is, you know, they're coming in and they are going to be, you know, doing an audit. And this has also been done before, right? This isn't the first time NIMS like tried to stress test like its code. And I think that was really important when, you know, we know of Chelsea Manning as a whistleblower and a variety of other things, but I think it's important to see her re-enter this space in a really acute way. And also just have some interest in like privacy technologies and mixed nets and these sorts of things in a way that, you know, continues to move forward around the origins of her going to prison, for example.
Yeah, I guess my question is, like, I know some people on the NIM team, and I think like it's a very legitimate project, but typically when you have these cryptographic audits, you hire entire firms and they go through the code base and they take months to do it. Like there's a few firms I can think of off the top of my head, but they hire them to do like intensive scrutiny, and they typically don't do like one-off people. So I'm wondering what Manning's involvement is in that capacity. Like, does she have a team, or what's going on that angle? But I don't know if the story got into that at all at this point.
Yeah, those details are still coming out for sure. This is going to be a months-long process. It was what it looks like, but you know, well, certainly there will be more details coming out as this moves along.
All right, let's wrap the show. I hope no one audits the quality of our show, because I don't know if we've passed that audit, guys. This one was
never read YouTube comments, Zach. Never read the comments.
Never read the comments.
It's so hard. It's so hard not to read the comments. All right. Anyway, well, let's wrap it. We'll do it again tomorrow. We'll improve. We'll take it one game at a time, and we're gonna get there. We'll play for each other. Go team. All right. This was the Hash for Wednesday. I'm Zach. We got Will, Naomi, Jen, and Ben. We'll be back tomorrow. Stick around, 3 p.m. Eastern, all about Bitcoin on CoinDesk TV and CoinDesk.com, obviously, for all the latest in crypto news. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, bye.
Stay shady.